Alrighty, so I wanted to do a workflow for any podiatrist who wanted to use the Bambu P1S 3D printer. All right, what I'm going to share today is I'm going to share the workflow of after you get the prescription sent to you from the lab. So basically, you're going to get a file that has the orthotics just ready to print. And that is the workflow I'm going to go through. There is another workflow, which I'll make a video of, where you can take that file and you can put it into the software of the company I use, which is OLT, and you can make even more modifications. So if the patient, you originally used the prescription or the orthotic that OLT or whatever company sends to you with the OLT company, if the patient comes and says, oh no, I'm still feeling this, I can actually, instead of sending it back to the lab, I can actually correct it on my software. So the first thing you do is you hit this box up here. This is going to bring you to your files. I'm going to put my right foot on here. And then you see my foot does not fit on the actual build plate. So I do feel like this is the one downfall if, doing a review of the Bambu P1S for purposes of printing an orthotic. What happens is it's like I have a size 8.5 foot and it barely fits on the plate this way. I actually have to go up here. There is a button that says auto orient. So it flips the orthotic, which is really nice if you've ever tried to use some of the other programs. So I'm rotating what's called the build plate, which is this is what's in the actual printer. So you can see here now it fits, but I'd like to actually maybe move that there. So you can take this and there's a rotate button. And on this axis, which is the axis on the actual plate, I just rotate it to make sure it's actually fitting there so it's no overhang. I do have other printers that I use that I played around with. I kind of went rogue for a period of time because I wasn't happy with the first generation. If I'm being perfectly honest, the first generation printer, the OLT, it was one that they built and it wasn't horrible, but there were downfalls. The build plate size was small, which I feel is the only kind of downfall in this, but I'll get back to that in a little bit. And then two, it didn't have an automatic shutoff. All of the printers that exist, I think now that people are using, they have a nice build plate like this, but again, some are bigger. And then the other thing is they have the automatic shutoff, they have a fan. They are getting so easy to use for people who are more lay people in this industry. And that's a real game changer and I think disruptor for podiatrists to be able to get back into something that was a part of your profession back in the day. Over here, I just wanted to touch on this a little bit. I have it programmed in, so it's the Bambu Lab. This is on the actual printer as a 0.4 nozzle. The plate, all this just means is the plate that's on there has little bumps on it, so it can help adhere to the plate a little bit better. And then I just want to go over here. So when I uploaded this software, the company OLT then had presets for what each one of these orthotics could be printed out as. And so there's something I just want to touch on, which is strength. And for example, this one says pillow. This is the softest. That's going to make what's called the infill only 13%, which is going to make the orthotic a little softer. It's still going to have a firmness to it, but it's going to make it a little softer. So that's really nice. So if you have a patient, so I've had patients who have said, hey, this is really too hard. And I tend to print at the strength of, and I'm going over here to these different strengths. For me, I actually have soft, and that's what I'm going to print for me. So this is 18% infill, which means it's firm, but there's a little bit of space. So it gives that orthotic a little give, which I think is way not nicer than some of the harder, more traditional orthotic materials. So for me, I'm just going to put strength, and that's set it and forget it. They have all the other things programmed, how fast it has to go, how the different little angles and dangles. You don't have to know any of that because that's really an engineering piece of it. And they've dialed that in for you. So so the workflow is I download it on the plate, I flipped it over, I rotate it, I pick the firmness I want for my patient. Now, if you have a patient who's pretty big, I would go back over here to strength and I would go with one of these firmer, which are 30% or 35% infill, which is going to make it much firmer because you don't want it to break down for them. The other thing I've noticed, we've been doing this for 2 years. I've yet to have somebody come in who's had any issues with the orthotics. I've had, that's not true. I've had 3 people come in who I had to replace their top cover, and 2 of them put them in the washer. And then the other one, I don't really know what he did to it. I think their dog ate it, honestly. But that's it. So again, the workflow is you open the program, you download your orthotic, and then you go over to this area and it says slice plate. Slicing the plate is actually going to the smart engineer people, not that we're not smart doctor people, but this is what they do for a living. They've figured out what each layer needs to be. Just kind of pretty incredible. There's a little toggle bar here so you can kind of see how the layers are going to print. So this is that bottom layer. And over time, as you go through the printing process, that's how it's going to look. It's pretty cool. And then you can see here, it says, it took 6 minutes to prepare it. The modeling printing time is 3 hours and 25 minutes. So then kind of getting back to what I think is a downfall is really not that big of a deal because the printer that I use that has a bigger print plate bed, so it may be twice the size of this pretty big cumbersome printer. It prints it in. So for me to print a pair of my orthotics on that printer takes about 7 hours. So this printer, the Bambu Lab, which I'll add up behind me right here, that one is a small, compact little printer. It's no bigger than, I have a little HP LaserJet right next to it, no bigger than that almost. And so you could really, I would start out, I'm a big fan of OLT. I would start out with them. You buy their pack. I think it's pretty reasonable. And then down the line, as you increase your volume with making orthotics, you can always buy another printer. And I think they're roughly around $500. And the price, the cool thing is that once you have it locked in, even if the technology changes and there's more fabulous printers, you can continue to use what you have. And if you, like for me, I have 4 3D printers, which is kind of crazy, but I kind of enjoy the technology a little bit as well. But you could always add another printer or 2 down the line. So as your volume increases, but if your volume doesn't increase, and you start with a printer like this and you're doing a couple pairs a week, the printer pays for itself. Everything kind of pays for itself so that it's almost all profit after, except for little things like, the maintenance. I haven't had any issues with maintenance with my other 3D printers so far. As far as major problems, there are things that happen when you 3D print, and they're usually pretty simple. If you join our online community, you can actually just upload what your problem is, but sometimes the nozzle gets clogged. Simple things. They're usually simple fixes. So I'm going to print this now. So that just hits print plate. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to take 3 hours. Great. I send it to the printer. And basically, the printer is going to start printing right away. It's connected wirelessly through the Wi-Fi. So it'll print. It'll take 3 hours and 31 minutes. So you could print that, go see patients, or like for me, I have printers at home because I feel as though it's kind of easy. I wake up early every morning, and when I come home, I can go for a nice walk or go to my kids' soccer practice, but I can still start an orthotic. So it's not disrupting my day in any way. And it's really nice because I'm providing a service to my patient that they can have that orthotic within a day or 2. I always tell people we can do this within a day to a week, just depending on what volume we have for that day. But in the background, you might be able to hear the printer starting to print. The first thing it does is it does what's called leveling. I'll see if I can actually show. So this, I have an orthotic in there. I gotta take out. But what it's doing right now is it's kind of going through the process. This little part up here is what's called the extruder. Right now, this is the little part that's what I like about this printer. There's a little thing right now. It kind of extrudes out of the nozzle. It's a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and then it kind of cleans the nozzle. Mine's kind of a little messy. It should be falling into the bucket, which it is. It's kind of pooping out right there, if you see that. And then what happens is it'll go along and hit this little thing here, come down, and then it'll start printing after the bed's level. So this thing, the only thing that really gets hot here is the nozzle. That's where it is extruding out. And that's it. Then it'll print on there for you.